New road construction throughout the world generally means growth and better accessibility. In contrast, roads between settlements can only be travelled by settlers. For Palestinians to drive on these roads, they must obtain special permits, which are extremely hard to get. The basic human right of freedom of movement within one's own country has been taken away from the majority of Palestinians and considered a privilege for a select few.
Here's where the highway system feeds in and the whole infrastructure, because you create a landscape in which, you're in Ma'ale Adumim, in the middle of the West Bank. Well, but with a beautiful highway, you can go to Ma'ale Adumim, you can go home and back, you work in Jerusalem, home and back in 15 minutes, with a beautiful highway, never encounter an Arab, never, God forbid, you never go through an Arab village or neighborhood or anything else. You stay completely in a Jewish-Israeli environment. So you come from Jewish Jerusalem, you go down the beautiful Jewish highway, through a Jewish landscape of the land of Israel, which is all idyllic because you don't see Arabs. You get into your Jewish dormitory suburb, go to your Jewish swimming pool at the end of the day, and everything is normal. It's banal. It's not an issue. It's not political at all.
The locations of settlements are chosen carefully. Most are located on the tops of hills and between Palestinian towns and villages. The majority of these settlements have no proper sewage system, leaving their wastewater to run through Palestinian agricultural land, causing great damage to the people and to the environment. Settlements squander valuable and needed natural resources, especially water. Water is an essential commodity in Palestine.
The average consumption per capita in Palestine, in West Bank actually, 140 cubic meter per capita a year, while the average consumption for settlers about 600 cubic meter per capita a year for all purposes. The Palestinians, they pay 4 times more than the Israelis as cost of water in West Bank, while we're using the same resources and the same infrastructure. In other words, we consume 5 times less, but we pay 4 times more.
There are now almost 500,000 Jewish settlers in occupied Palestinian territory. Israelis did not stand in line to be residents of the settlements. Residents were recruited, manipulated, and offered many incentives by each successive government of Israel.
The main reason for me to buy a house here is economic, of course. A house like this in Tel Aviv would cost, I think, double price. Also, of course, there are bonuses. There are more things, more reasons to come to live here. The nice neighborhood, it is built nicely. It is quite new. The houses are not old. There is wonderful view, wonderful air, good air. But the main reason, of course, is economic. The government also gives incentives in very good conditions for people who buy houses in the settlements. Most of the people, including my friends, including me a few years ago, as I said, are not aware of this fact, living in occupied territories. And even if they are aware, they would like to forget it, not to think about it.
What Israel did, especially Sharon, that was very smart, Sharon saw that there weren't enough ideological settlers. The religious settlers that really see this as the land of Israel and want to conquer it from the Arabs. There are not that many. And he couldn't get masses of Jews into the occupied territories on an ideological basis. So what he did is he disconnected ideology from settlement. So you have Ma'ale Adumim and Givat Ze'ev and Ariel and Alfei Menashe, a lot of other cities that have nothing to do with settlement or politics. They're normal people living there. They don't even know, half of them, that they're across any kind of a green line, which has been completely eliminated from the Israeli maps.
It's a big problem for me, in my eyes, that the people of Pisgat Ze'ev don't even know when a house is demolished nearby and 10 children are without house, which happened just last year. Most of the people in Pisgat Ze'ev don't know about it, and the few who do know about it, they don't care. I think a lot about the difference of my son and the conditions he lives in, and the kids a few hundred meters nearby. And I even write about it in the neighborhood newspaper. And I would like people to open their eyes and to see these things. It's very hard, the sharp difference, geography and in the mind, between the refugee camp, just nearby here, and the people who live here, which complain about such stupid things, like the garbage is not moved every day, but only every 2 days, or something like this. The government tricked us for buying a house here, as the government tricked so many of Israel citizens. If the government offered me some apartment, more or less like this, as I have now, in another place, in Israel, not in the occupied territories, and that would make the peace closer, I would leave tomorrow.
According to the Israeli group Peace Now, the overwhelming majority of settlers, 80% of them, consider themselves to be economic settlers. But the other 20% are ideological, hardcore religious zealots. They are well armed and have no hesitation in using these arms.
These ideological settlers chose to live deep in heavily populated Palestinian areas, especially the settlers down in Hebron, chose to live deep in Palestinian areas because that's where they would break the Palestinians, that's where they would fragment their contiguity, surround them, lock them into islands, and create these pathways between the settlements and Israel proper.
The city of Hebron is now home to the most violent settlers. Hebron is no stranger to violence by the settlers. In 1994, an American-born Jewish doctor entered the Holy Mosque in Hebron and slaughtered 29 Palestinians at prayer. Today, Hebron is a city of 150,000 Palestinians, under siege by 450 religious fanatics with an army to protect them.
איפה הבית שלך? וين تسكن؟
In the 1980s, the Hebron settlers decided to venture out of their settlements and move into the city itself. The Palestinian neighborhood of Tel Rumeida was their target. The people of Tel Rumeida endure all kinds of settler violence and harassment, intended to force Palestinians to leave their homes and their land. They are in a constant state of siege, curfews, and checkpoints. According to the United Nations, there are 181 checkpoints in the Hebron area. It's difficult and often dangerous to travel from home to work, to the market, to visit friends and family. The brutality of the settlers and the occupation that comes with them prompted some former Israeli soldiers to break the silence and speak out to their own society and to the world about their experience in Hebron.
We're walking there in streets that only Jews could walk in the streets. The Palestinians couldn't go out of their houses. They were under curfew. And there are certain streets in Hebron that were only for Jews. The street is cleaned from Palestinians. And I remember myself walking in these streets. It was an holiday, a Jewish holiday, and the city was full of thousands of Jews. And we're walking in the middle of a Palestinian city that has 150,000 Palestinians in the city, and all what we see when we're patrolling there is Jews. We didn't see one Palestinian for hours. And I didn't understand what's going on around me, why everything is closed, why it looks like a Jewish city. And when I started to talk with the settlers there, so that the answer I got is that this is the way Hebron should look.
As you see here, the playground of my kids. As you see, it's a jail, not playground, but we call it playground because my kids, they play here, and because if they go outside, they will be dangerous. They will be attacked by the settlers, and also by soldiers, they don't care. They play here because if they go outside, they will feel afraid because always they're attacked by stones and by glass bottles. They throw it at the kids when they play at the road, so they should come, and we use this fence to protect them from the stones. Because when we was sit here, also we was attacked by the settlers, and the soldier, they can protect the settlers only. It's our fault or our crime, just because we are a Palestinian and we did not want to leave this house.
The real situation behind the headlines of the newspapers. What I did in Hebron every night, firing grenades into a Busnena neighborhood, that's what the Israeli press called IDF forces returned fire to the source of fire. I don't remember once that I recognized the source of fire.
People just argued. I mean, I want to shoot, no, I want to shoot, no, I want to shoot. That just like stood in line behind a grenade machine gun in order to shoot the grenades for something like 2,000 meters at Khalid Sheikh. I mean, it's a civilized neighborhood, and you can't see shit. I mean, it's night, and you don't see any snipers, you don't see nothing. You just see buildings, and you feel like it's inside of a computer game. And then your mother calls you to see if you're okay. You can't tell her that this is what you've been doing. I mean, and she hears the shots.
In the middle of the West Bank. Well, but with a beautiful highway, you can go to Male Adumim, you can go home and back. You work in Jerusalem, home and back in 15 minutes, with a beautiful highway. Never encounter an Arab. Never, God forbid, you never go through an Arab village or neighborhood or anything else. You stay completely in a Jewish Israeli environment. So you come from Jewish Jerusalem, you go down the beautiful Jewish highway, through a Jewish landscape of the land of Israel, which is all idyllic because you don't see Arabs. You get into your Jewish dormitory suburb, go to your Jewish swimming pool at the end of the day, and everything is normal. It's banal. It's not an issue. It's not political at all.
The locations of settlements are chosen carefully. Most are located on the tops of hills and between Palestinian towns and villages. The majority of these settlements have no proper sewage system, leaving their wastewater to run through Palestinian agricultural land, causing great damage to the basic human right of freedom of movement within one's own country has been taken away from the majority of Palestinians and considered a privilege for a select few.
Here's where the highway system feeds in and the whole infrastructure, because you create a landscape in which, you're in Male Adumim.
New road construction throughout the world generally means growth and better accessibility. In contrast, roads between settlements can only be travelled by settlers. For Palestinians to drive on these roads, they must obtain special permits, which are extremely hard to get. The basic